The seventh process of the Align, Plan and Organize domain, called Manage Human Resources, has 6 practices. The first practice is to maintain adequate IT staffing. From a RACI charts perspective, the entities that are responsible for this practice include the Project Management Office, the Human Resources Head, and several IT heads and managers. The entity that is held accountable is the Chief Information Officer. The practice receives several inputs, which include the Approved Resources Plan from the EDM4 process, the IT Budget and Plan from the APO06 process, and the Enterprise Goals from external sources. The practice generates 3 outputs, which are the Staffing Requirements Evaluations, the Career Development Plans, and the Personnel Sourcing Plans, all to be used internally. The activities involved in this practice include constantly evaluating the staffing requirements to ensure that there are sufficient IT resources that are available and capable of performing their tasks. The IT personnel recruitment and retention plans should be maintained and properly managed, such as performing background checks on potential candidates. Staffing sources, including external sources, should be identified, to ensure that changing business needs can be satisfied. Cross-training is an option to be considered to reduce the dependency on specific people to perform specific tasks. The second practice is to identify the key IT staff. The entities that are responsible for this practice include the Project Management Office, the Human Resources Head, and several IT heads and managers. The entity that is held accountable is the Chief Information Officer. The practice receives no inputs from any other internal or external sources, but it generates one output, which is the list of key personnel, which is to be used internally. The activities involved in this practice include ensuring that the acquired knowledge is documented, and is shareable when needed, in order to minimize the reliance on individuals that perform critical activities. Initiatives such as cross-training, staff backups, and succession plans should be considered. Vacations of key individuals should be carefully planned, and backup staff should be tested regularly that they can perform the required tasks. Key positions that have been vacated should be filled as soon as possible. The third practice is to maintain the personnel skills and competencies. From a RACI charts perspective, the entities that are responsible for this practice include the Project Management Office, the Human Resources Head, and several IT heads and managers. The entity that is held accountable is the Chief Information Officer. The practice receives several outputs, which include the reward system approach from the EDM1 process, the knowledge training schemes from the BAI8 process, and the monitoring results of skills from the DSS4 process. It generates 3 outputs, which are the skills matrix to be used by the APO1 and BAI1 processes, the skills development plans to be used by the EDM4 and APO1 processes, and the review reports to be used internally. The activities involved in this practice include defining the required and assessing the current skills and competencies. Staff career development plans should be developed, and access to the required knowledge should be granted. Gaps between the current and required skills should be identified, and an action plan should be advised to reach the required level, which includes technical training, recruitment, and redeployment of resources. Training programs should be developed and constantly maintained, and regular reviews should be performed to assess the evolution of skills and competencies.